What's up, team? It's Mr. Ritual here. Good to see you. Today's lesson is, drum roll, finding the main idea when reading. And our lesson objective is that we will determine a main idea of a text. That is our goal for today. Now notice it says determine a main idea, not the main idea. So oftentimes there can be more than one main idea. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look over this great resource online. Let me just pull it up here. That outlines how exactly to find the main idea. This resource was provided to us by Columbia College. You can go to it as you see the link right here, if you can type all that in. But notice we have a .edu, always important to consider .edu sources when we are talking about education. So let's get right down to the nuts and bolts of today's lesson. Again, finding the main idea, and this is very important because we must always know why we are reading what we are reading. So for starters, what is the main idea of what we're reading? And we're just going to kind of go through this together and highlight the important stuff. So for starters, as we see, the main idea of a paragraph is the author's message about the topic. So key phrase here, author's message. When we consider the main idea, what do we want, or what does the author want us to gain from what they've written? Main ideas can often be expressed directly or they can be implied. And we'll get back to that word implied a little later. But first, where can I find main ideas? Main ideas are actually pretty easy to find. There's two main ways to find the main idea. One way is that they're often expressed at the beginning of paragraphs. The first sentence just lays it out. Another place you can find it is in the last sentence of a paragraph. Again, just laid out. Now, going back to the beginning sentence, if it is there, it explains the subject being discussed in the passage. However, if we find it in the last paragraph, it can be expressed as a summary of the information preceding it. Okay? But again, two main places that we find the main idea: the beginning of the paragraph or the end of the paragraph. And usually they are explicitly, directly stated. But is that always the case? The main idea is not always clearly stated, as we see here. And it's more difficult to identify a main idea when it is implied. There's that word implied. And basically implied, if you don't already know, means it's not directly stated. So, for example, if a student is bored, but they just put their head down in class, or they put their head down on the computer, what might they be implying without saying it? That they're indeed, in fact, bored out of their minds. So, it's not always clearly stated. As we see here, several sentences in a paragraph can imply the main idea by introducing facts about the topic before actually stating the topic. So let's take a look at this paragraph here. This is what I want you to do is read this passage here, okay, and see if you can identify the main idea. Okay. Any thoughts? Let's go ahead and take a look at this paragraph together. Here we have, to many parents, the infant's crying may be mainly an irritation, especially if it continues for long periods. But crying serves important functions for the child as well as for the parents. For the child, crying helps improve lung capacity and the respiratory system. Perhaps more important, the cry serves as a signal of distress. When babies cry, they indicate that they are hungry or in pain. And this is important information for parents. What do you think the main idea is? Very good. No, that's not it. So remember, again, beginning and the end. However, if we take a look at the beginning and end sentences of this paragraph, we do not find the main idea. Rather, we just find information that supports the main idea. This one is a little tricky. I would say that the main idea is actually right here in this second sentence. Crying serves important functions for the child as well as for the parents. So the main idea of this paragraph is that crying is important. Why? Because it helps lung capacity. It helps the respiratory system. It lets parents know that babies are trying to communicate that they might be hungry or in pain or tired. So crying is an important function for the child as well as for the parents, is the main idea. So if we go back to the first sentence, we see that this first sentence simply supports, or rather differs from that idea, right? To many parents, the infant's crying may be mainly an irritation, especially if it continues for long periods of time. So that first sentence, while it doesn't agree with the main idea, it simply introduces the main idea and why crying might in fact be important, is important. Does that make sense? Excellent. Here are some important details to consider when finding a main idea. Again, why is the main idea important? What's the main idea of this main idea topic? To know why we're reading what we're reading. So after reading a paragraph, again, the author's message. What point is the author making in this passage? What the hell does this writer want me to know? So you can ask the following questions, right? The 4 W's and the 1 H. Who? Does this passage discuss a person or group of people? When? Does this information talk about time? Where? Do we have a place? Why? Do you find a reason or explanation for something that happened? How? Is there a method or theory behind this madness? Once you have decided on finding a main idea, it's important to determine if you have found a correct main idea. So if you're able to summarize, one way to find that out, have I landed the main idea? Again, there can be more than one main idea. Oftentimes, when we're talking about a paragraph, there's typically going to be just one, but there's multiple paragraphs. So what is the main ideas? What are the main ideas? Well, if you're able to summarize the information in the passage in your own words, you have absorbed the correct main idea. So after you finished reading, can you explain what you've read to a peer or to a parent or to anyone? What have you absorbed of the author's message? Can you summarize that? Finding the main idea. If you are able to rephrase your choice of a topic sentence into a question, then determine if the passage answers your question, you have been successful at selecting a main idea. So again, that key word, rephrasing, restating, explaining what you've read, summarizing it. So again, finding the main idea. Our goal, to determine a main idea of a text. We're going to be reading a lot this year, and it's so important that we know why we read what we read. Have a great day. Ciao.